Hi everyone, welcome to the online workshop Researching Game Making, Skills, Cultures and Politics. I'm super excited you're all here, as much as here means anything in 2020. And I'm really excited about the conversations and discussions we're going to have this week and the research we're going to hear about. I'll say more about that in a second, but first of all, it's important I want to acknowledge the Turrbal and Yagara people as the First Nation owners of the lands of where QUT stands, the university that I'm reporting to you from, and where this research project is primarily based. I want to pay my respects to the elders, laws, customs, and creation spirits, and I want to recognize that these lands have always been places of teaching, research, and learning. This land was never ceded. It was taken by force from Australia's Indigenous people, and it's important to recognise that wherever possible. And I'd also like to extend my respects to the Indigenous people of all the lands from which all of you are participating in this workshop throughout this week. So yes, welcome. I'm very excited we're all here. It's going to be a very exciting week. So this workshop is bringing together researchers, it's bringing together policymakers, it's bringing together game developers from the Australian game industry. And I'll talk more about what we're doing in a sec, but first I just want to say thank you everyone for being here, and I think it's going to be great. So this workshop really forms the capstone event of a research project that I've been undertaking for the last 3 years. It's been funded by the Australian Research Council, our main funding body for academic research in Australia. And it's a Discovery Early Career Research Award Fellowship. We just call them DECRAs for short. And it's provided me the privilege of spending 3 years undertaking an extensive research program looking at game development or game making in Australia. This is what it was called. I'll talk more about in my own video about my own research, what I actually did for this. But it was ultimately driven by a sense that current modes for understanding the video game industry fail to account for what I felt like the realities were in Australia with game makers I knew personally, and that I'd kind of seen in the field as a critic, blogger, student, etc. And I felt like there was just more work to be done there, and kind of came in sideways from my previous work, which was largely textual, text-based, to a whole world of research taking place, researching game making. And so researching game making is why we're here. So the people I have invited to this workshop, first of all, the presenters are the researchers from around the world who have been foundational to my own work for these last few years. Some of them I've had the privilege of knowing personally for many years now. Others I'll be meeting for the first time this week, but all of them are just doing most spectacular research in this very, very broad area that may or may not have a field name. We'll get to that in a sec. And the broader participants, some of you I don't know, you're HDR students or colleagues of the presenters, and thank you for joining us. I think that's great. Also, I'm really excited to have representatives here from various institutions around Australia, funding bodies, other support institutions, as well as some game developers from the local industry. All of whom I'm just excited to hear. I'm really keen to see what you think of the research taking place. But in terms of who these speakers are, what is researching game making? Where does this fit as an academic discipline? And it's something I've been thinking about, obviously, for the last 3 years. Whether is this work I'm doing? Is it cultural studies? Is it focused on issues of power, of representation, of the lived experience of game makers, labor, money, all these big cultural studies questions? Is it, I don't know if this is adjacent to cultural studies or a subset of cultural studies. I suppose it depends who you ask. Is it cultural industries or creative industries research, which I discovered at the start of this project is it's a whole nother debate, significantly more interesting than narratology versus ludology, in part because both sides have some good points. Is it game studies? And of course it is game studies, but then which game studies? I've been thinking so much in the last year or so about what a broad church that term game studies is, in terms of what disciplines it can encompass, both inclusively in a good way, but also problematically stepping on each other's toes ways. This term, game production studies, has started being circulated more often in recent years. I first encountered it via Ollie Satama, who I believe who's co-editing an anthology coming out next year by the same name. And I've really latched onto this type of game production studies as I think a really valuable one. But I think there are people here who I would imagine wouldn't fit themselves under that category. There are people here who are primarily educators in game development or who research how we teach games. And I've written pedagogy here, but I also mean, I guess, critically, just what are the dynamics of the culture of teaching game development? How does that work in here? And we also have some developers here who I think I'm really excited by, and I'm curious to see how this fits or doesn't fit, who are practitioners themselves and also academics, and who walk that fine line between how does creative practice get incorporated into academic work? And I think that's something a lot of people struggle with as game practitioners, between maybe feeling a more humanities style critical approach to games in their research, but being more aligned with, say, human computer interaction or software engineering or computer science when it comes to the skills of a craft they bring. And I think there are some cross pollination discussions to be had there that we don't have very often. So I'm excited for those as well. And I guess as a broad umbrella question of what I think is driving the presentations and the discussions that I would like to have throughout this week is I'm thinking about, like, what does it mean to treat the creation of video games seriously as a creative practice and a cultural industry? And so that both means in terms of, like, obviously the top down, the political, economic, financial, globalized flows, platforms, big companies, all that, but also like those individual ambitions of, like, the hobbyist who is contributing to a local scene in some way, but maybe not in ways that we have a language to account for yet, without just calling it self-exploitation or something like that, or entrepreneurism. Like, how can we navigate these discussions? So how is this hopefully going to work? I've chosen a pretty experimental way to run this, as you're probably already aware, and it'll possibly fall apart and not work, but I'm cautiously optimistic it's going to go really well. So if this was a real life academic workshop, a small number of us, not all of us, would be meeting in a classroom at QUT's Kelvin Grove campus, and we would be 2 probably pretty intense, pretty full days where we brainstorm ideas, listen to each other's research, and just kind of think about the state of the field and whatnot. And in 2020, with travel restrictions, that obviously can't happen. And I think the idea of asking people to commit 2 full days to long Zoom meetings is just not going to happen. People would say, yeah, that would be great. But then, like, Zoom fatigue will set in, marking will come in. It just wouldn't happen. So the way I hope this will work, and the way I've tried to structure it, is that rather than 2 really intense full days of work, you'll engage with the same amount of content, except for roughly 2 hours a day over the course of a week. That is how I hope it works. I really hope people actively try to participate in it, but I also hope it doesn't become this, like, stressful, overwhelming amount of stuff that you have to do before around all your other commitments at this really stressful time of year, in this really stressful year as well. And so yeah, hopefully we can be a bit flexible. If you don't get through everything, there's enough people here who can access other stuff. The silver lining of this situation we're in is I'm able to invite more people from more places around the world, which I'm really happy about. I think it's really great. All of us are here. So there's 3 main elements. There will be pre-recorded videos such as this one. There'll be a Discord server where discussions will take place throughout the week. And there will be entirely optional Zoom sessions if you're feeling lonely and would like to actually talk to someone in real time. And around all of this is the zone. And I will talk about the zone a bit later because it's its own special thing. So firstly, for pre-recorded presentations, the links are going to be in the program. Last time you looked at a program, it might have said they're not there yet. Hopefully, now you're watching this, they are there. I'm taken the presentations that were pitched, and I have separated those into thematic groups of usually 3 videos each. One might have more. You can watch these in any order you want. You can watch them at any time you want, whatever works for you around your busy schedule and 2020 cesspit of a year. I have organized a daily schedule, which is in the program, and you're welcome to use that to maybe follow along in particular order. And my hope for that is maybe I can move the bulk of people to specific conversations at specific times. But really, like, whatever works for you, please do that to engage with the content. And again, yeah, you'll be able to watch the talks through unlisted YouTube videos, and you can also watch them in the zone, and I'll get to that in a bit. One thing I would stress at this point is I would ask that you please don't share the links to the unlisted videos beyond the other participants here, because there are presenters who would not like their works in progress made public, and so please respect that. So there's the pre-recorded videos, and then after you watch the videos, discussion happens on a Discord server, which I imagine will be familiar for many of you. Some of you, it might be the first time you use Discord. It's very similar to Slack. And my idea is there will be written channels, so a channel for each session that takes place. And on that session, you're able to, if you watch a video on Monday, you can go in that session's Discord channel, you can write a question, you can comment, you can chat to the presenters, talk about the interesting links between the other papers, whatever. And then if someone else watches the same presentation on Thursday, when they go to that channel, they'll be able to scroll back and see that discussion and then contribute more to it. That is how I envision this working, and fingers crossed, that is how it works. There will also be a general channel where you can just talk about anything related to the theme of research and game making that may not be about particular papers. I will also provide prompts each day of the week into the general channel to kind of facilitate particular conversations, but please also feel free just to talk in ways that aren't related to that prompt. The Discord, I think, is really like the hub of this whole workshop. I think that's where I expect people to spend most of their time. And so then the third part, or the third place this is going to take place, is I've set up a Zoom channel, or a Zoom room, I suppose. And at specific times that I've set to work well and not well in different time zones of the people who are attending, you can show up and just have a chat with whoever else shows up. Maybe check in Discord first who is going to be there, or just hang out and see who rocks up. I'm going to try to make all of them, even the 2 a.m. one for me. And yeah, there's no agenda for these. If you don't want to make the time for them, that's fine. But I felt like having at least an option to just chat to people might be really nice, because the asynchronous thing might get a bit hard. And so if you want to come along and talk about people's papers, if you want to just talk about other things, other research, please go ahead. All of these times are in Australian Eastern Standard Time. And now you can have the experience that Australians have had all year of converting time zones to fit to America and Europe, and everywhere else in the world. So enjoy that. So finally, we have the zone. So this is something I'm very excited about, and would really like to see all of you take advantage of as much as possible. I've commissioned 2 Australian game developers, Cecile Richards and Jay Stewart, and they've used I don't know what we call it, the like/glitch infrastructure that Paolo Pediccini made for his gallery like earlier in this year. And in your browser, you can walk around this cute pixely 2D space, and you can watch for videos in here. There's classrooms. You go into the classroom, there's a YouTube video embedded. You can talk to other people, other participants in real time. And yeah, you can just hang out and chat. And I hope this will make up for the fact that you're all not here with me at QUT in Brisbane right now. So I really encourage you to use it. So if you haven't used this before, like, you'll see other people moving around in real time. You can chat to them, and little speech bubbles appear. And I think it'll be a really lovely way that, say you go on Discord and be like, hey, I'm going to go watch this session. Who wants to come watch it now? And you just meet there together, press play, and you can talk to each other about what's going on while you watch it. And it might be just a nice way to make this less lonely. You can engage in all the other content without dealing with the zone, but I really hope this kind of makes this a bit more friendly and human and playful for everybody. And the one thing that is exclusive to the zone that you would have to log on to the zone to see is a small exhibition in there of the fieldwork from my research project. So I've taken some of my favorite quotes from my research project, and they've been sorted into rooms thematically, along with a bunch of browser-based Australian games, which I think interestingly represent what kind of game development or game making is happening here in recent years. So yeah, please check out the zone. Please, if you've got questions about it, hit me up in Discord or email. But I really hope people take advantage of this. I think it'll be really great. Finally, what are the outcomes of this workshop? This is a deliberately blank slide because, frankly, I don't know. The main thing I wanted to get out of this was to just bring together this, what feels like to me, this vague community of researchers and research adjacent people who have these interests in how we talk about game making and how we understand the cultures of game making locally and globally, and just to see where are the parallels, what are we talking about, what aren't we talking about, what should we be talking about. Ideally, some form of publications would come out of this, but I'm conscious that some presenters are presenting works that have recently been published. And I'm conscious too that there was an anthology published this year, Independent Video Games, and another anthology being released next year, Independent Game Production Studies, which many of you are part of and much of his research is part of, and which are already, I think, doing a significant amount of work to forward for conversations around game production studies broadly. So I'm sure we'll have something out of this, and that is maybe a discussion for the end of the week. But for now, I just want to see what you all have to say, presenters and non-presenters alike. So yeah, so just a few quick thank yous to wrap this up. I've been speaking long enough. Firstly, I want to thank the Digital Media Research Centre, which is where I've been based for the last 3 years for this research project. I won't name everybody, but people like Jean Burgess, Michael Deswani, Amanda Lotz, Kevin Sanson, Terry Flew for mentoring me, for supporting this project and building, I think, one of the most exciting kind of hubs of game studies in Australia. We've got quite a critical mass now, which is really exciting. A particular really special thank you to Stuart Cunningham, who I'm sure many of you know through his research and who is joining us this week, who has been a particularly valuable mentor for me, both in doing the application for the research grant, which has led to this workshop, and throughout in the last 3 years holding me account and pushing me on my ideas and just teaching me how to be an academic, frankly. So I'm really indebted to Stuart for this. Similarly, I want to thank Benjamin Nicol, my colleague, who I've co-authored with a bit in the last couple of years, and who has heard more than anyone should about my research and the ideas that I've since rejected, and who has read more drafts than anyone should ever read of my work. So I'm really thankful to Ben. And lastly, of course, thanks to all of you for making the time to be part of this workshop in such a horrible year for everyone, while in Australia, the university sector is falling apart, and those visiting from elsewhere in the world who are dealing with really kind of crippling pandemics, obviously. So thank you for making the time to be here around your really busy schedules. Thank you, presenters, particularly for the videos. Thank you to the non-academic participants who've come from other sectors or from the industry for particularly making the time to be part of this. And I'm really, really excited for what you'll contribute to the discussion. So thanks, everyone. Look forward to meeting you on Discord or in the zone. Hope you have a great workshop.